Here's the front of the control panel. And this is the rear of the control panel. Looking pretty complicated, but all of this equipment is entirely supplemental. So if I go ahead and just unplug this guy right here, nothing's broken, nothing doesn't work. This is all just designed to give you push button functionality in order to correct problems that you have with the system. And this is based on a lot of different feedback that I've got from building essentially the same system in a lot of different ways for a lot of different people. And this just allows you to really get everything you can out of your battery. So I'm going to go ahead and just start to explain it. Starting off with this switch right here, real simple. This actually connects off to a 12-volt fan that is temperature controlled, but in the event that it's late at night and you don't want to listen to that fan run anymore, you can just go ahead and turn it off. Let's see here. The next switch right here actually controls the battery charger for the 12-volt system. Now, for some systems, what you would do is you have to actually turn the inverter on or run the generator to charge your 12-volt battery up, and then that runs your refrigerator and your lights and your fans all day, and it discharges, and then you got to go ahead and turn that stuff on again and run it up and down, and you're just kind of running it up and down. So I decided just to bypass all of that. You can go ahead and shut all of your AC power off, unless you need it, and you can run everything off of just a battery-to-battery charger, and that makes sure that the battery stays, in this case, above 70%. In other builds, I actually tend to go a little bit lower so that we can use the alternator charge, because we really don't want to steal power from the primary lithium battery to the 12-volt battery if we have a way to directly charge that 12-volt battery up. So in that case, we want to keep it relatively low. But in this particular case, since we don't really have that, we're not really getting a lot of power from that fifth wheel attachment pin, and we don't really want to use that. That's not at all what we're trying to use. So we want to keep that battery relatively full. We still have the primary rapid charge battery for when we're plugged in, or we want to go ahead and turn that on, we can rapid charge it. This is just kind of a low charge to ensure that all of the essentials keep running without it being necessary to turn that on. And let's see what else we have here. The next thing is we have these two breakers right here. These breakers are going to be automatically tripped off in the event that the battery gets too hot. And that is a secondary fail system that's independently controlled from the primary battery management system. And the reason we have that is in the event that the battery pack gets too hot with the BMS, the battery management system is going to just turn it off, and then once it cools down again, it's going to turn it back on again. If it were to get excessively hot, or if, for example, we were to detect water, we would not want the battery just to get wet, and then once that dries out, for it to just turn back on again. We want manual intervention. Like, I want you to come down here and look to see what happened, and that's why we actually have these turn themselves off. Otherwise, we would just use a contactor, or we would use MOSFETs, and we'd be able to just turn that system on and off remotely. But in these particular instances, we want user intervention, because there's really no reason that the battery should have continued to get hot after the battery management system shut it down. So there was no reason for these to ever get triggered in the first place, because something is wrong, and this just gives you a chance to go ahead and look at and inspect the system. And everything is designed that way, but none of this is essential equipment. If that sensor wasn't working properly, you would actually get an alarm notification to let you know there wasn't power to it. And if the sensors aren't working like they are now, you actually get a little beep notification like this right here. And if there's no power, you get an alarm, and when the battery for the backup alarm that monitors this Goes low, you get another beep as well. So you have a battery monitoring a battery monitoring a battery in this scenario. But everything just kind of is designed to give you alerts and notifications and to make it very easy to just shut everything down. That's one of the other things that you can have if you wanted to put this into deep storage for a year or more. You can actually shut everything down just with the buttons in the front, and then you can come back and it's going to be able to just liven itself back up again. And that's not something you get with a regular RV system. With that, in fact, any RV system, if you just take your factory RV and you just leave it alone, not plugged into power for a year, those batteries will be dead, and this allows you to actually go ahead and store them for long term. Because it has that ability to actually fully turn itself off. And that again is just also something really nice for on-the-road diagnostics. Same reason we also have the ability to charge from the 12 volt to the lithium battery. So say for example you had absolutely no power, you can always find somebody with a car who will give you jumper cables, and you can put a little bit of power into this battery here. And once you get a little bit of power into your 12 volt battery, you can go ahead and put that into your lithium battery. And then once you get that lithium battery powered up, you can go ahead and get that inverter powered on, and the solar is going to come in, and you're going to go ahead and get power back to the system. So there's always a way to go ahead and build power back, even from exact zero. And this is all built in from the factory, so if you're boondocking, you don't need parts, you don't need tools or anything. Same with all the safety equipment. There's no fuses in here. You're not out looking for a Class T fuse out in quartzite. Everything here is breakers, and especially auto resetting breakers, because we want all of this equipment to function. If there's a problem, flip it off, flip it back on again, everything's going to work. And that's why we design it this way, so it's all serviceable. And the main components all function without any of this actually being here. This is all supplemental. For example, like this button right here, that's what you pressed in order to send power from your 12 volt system to the 50 volt system. It's all simplified down to a button push. This button right here silences the alarm for the 12 volt power failure. So when you are putting this into, say, giving it over to a service technician to work on it, and they want the whole system shut off, you shut the whole system down and you turn off the power failure alarm, which is that right there. And then this guy right here, that does the step down if you wanted to turn that feature off and have it go back, so that you could utilize 100% of your 12 volt battery, which would be the kind of scenario you would have if you were like more of a weekend warrior type person, where you'd want to be able to use your 12 volt battery and your primary 50 volt battery to their full potential. Because in this type of scenario, you'd never really use that 12 volt battery unless you were letting your primary battery go all the way down to zero, and that's just not something that a lot of people do. But again, it's all dependent on your exact scenario and how you're using the equipment. Same thing, like that's why this voltage alarm, I've just left it as a terminal here, because we're not really sure what we want. Maybe we want 10 minutes of notification, maybe we want 10 hours of notification before the refrigerator shuts off. Maybe we want it to be like a little a vibrating alarm, kind of like a phone set to vibrate, or maybe we want a flashing light. We don't really know, but the options are pretty much endless. It's all what you want it to be, suited to exactly what you want it to do. And that's kind of the way these are designed, so that everything is just really simple, and you don't need to understand the complexities of all this equipment right here. You just need to know which button to press, and that's why I bought a label maker.